I, I once again welcome you all for the today's session. Today we are going to discuss much about the security governance. So, what is the security governance main focus and how it is important? Those aspects we are going to see today. So, if we first want to understand the security governance principles, why the security governance is important and what are the key principles, if we are emphasizing those aspects, the first and fundamental thing is it is a it is having a multiple mechanisms which is to evaluating and defining and directing the organization security efforts. So it is, let's say, an organization having a security thought process or vision as part of the business objective. This governance is try to support and evaluate the implementations, and it will also guide like these are the aspects which you need to adhere such that it is ultimately supporting the organizational security efforts. So that is what. So it is continuously having the responsibility of supporting, evaluating, and defining when it is required to meet and align in the organizational security efforts. This is the fundamental requirement. And basically, who takes the responsibility of this governance means typically it is led by the board of directors, or there exists a governance committee. So these are the broader top level management who is trying to look over the security governance aspects. But let's say if the organization is very small, then the CEO and CISO are the key persons who look after the security governance. But the security governance is the one of the fundamental important aspect because it supports for the organizational security efforts, right? And the major purpose of security governance is to ensure that security aligns with the best practices, and the seniority and the knowledge associated with this board of directors can be induced to the organization for the betterment in terms of security, right? So it ensures that internal security aligns with the external best practices because these people, generally board of directors and governance committee, they are well experienced. They will try to bring a lot of technical exposure and knowledge and vision which is required to have the better security requirements to meet the organizational security. So those insights can be brought into the organization. That is the ultimate purpose. Let's say I am doing something job, but let's say it is continuously being monitored, or let's say I am being continuously guided by a senior person, then definitely the outcome what we are intended to achieve will be definitely perfect. That is the ultimate purpose and the goal of this thing. That's why they try to bring this board of directors comes from a different diverse various industries, so they will bring a lot of valuable perspective to enhance the security strategies of the organization. So this is one of the important things. Now, why the security governance is required, why this compliance is required in terms of security? If you see, the basic requirement which will emphasize the necessity of security governance and compliance, it is one of the organizational sustainability. And people also should understand like security governance is something similar to how we have the corporate and IT governance. It is one of the third angle which we call it as security governance. So people have some vision and they have corporate governance, one aspect which will try to the financial aspects. I think like let's say stocks and everything. Let's say organization having a product that is corporate level, right? How much investment, how much money we will get in back. So this is what we call it as corporate governance. Coming to the IT governance, to sustain your organizational requirements, you have to a lot of IT management has to be taking place. So where a lot of systems are there and some management works in terms of IT infrastructure and all. This is what we call it as IT governance. So now security governance we can't separate separately, but all together has to be come into single process to meet the business growth and resilience. So these all interlinked. So it is somewhere interlinked with the corporate and IT governance. So those all fundamentals working for the business growth and resilience. So they don't want any abrupt interruption in the business growth, right? So that is the ultimate goal of this these governance principles. So sometimes what happens is this security governance is also a requirement to meet certain compliance. Let's say a government has taken as a legislation to tell that this industry need to follow this kind of guidelines and all these things. So there can be regulations like GDPR, DPDP. These are the some regulations or guidelines which government is trying to enforce on certain industries. They have to agree. And sometimes industry specific guidelines also. Let's say some organizations which are working in the domains of medical, so they have to adhere to the some industry guidelines. Let's say in the banking sector, financial, we may have PCI DSS compliance may be required certain aspects to meet the security. Let's say if the industry is dealing with the data with the medical healthcare, you may end up requirement of HIPAA. So sometimes to have a licensing, you need to have a certain license also. Then also you need to undergo to the this governance. Means you need to have those governance and compliances requirements may induce because of these of the legislation or regulatory or industry guidelines or any such sort of requirements also may bring that concept. So this security governance broadly tells of regular assessment and verification. So it is not something like one time job. It is regular audit ensure that compliance with government regulations and industry best practices. So ultimate idea of this security governance and compliance is we want to ensure that there is no security gap in our business infrastructure or policies or mechanisms such that we don't want to see any gap which will impact our organizational vision and goal. So such that generally if you want to achieve something best, the only thing we need to follow is the follow the best practices. Sometimes as I mentioned earlier, if government is making a mandatory compliance, you need to adhere. But what is the problem here is, see, one type of security governance which you try to enforce in certain geographical locations may not work to the other area, right? See, each country may come with the different laws. Sometimes a policy which you are trying to apply for the one country where your organization is running, doing the business, it may not suits or relevant or found sounds good to the other country, right? So this is one of the challenging aspects which people try to encounter. So it is also one of the aspect is to have the risk management, because organization needs direction, guidance and tools to minimize the downtime and potential loss. If you don't have this governance or compliance, you may end up seeing some gaps in the continuous running of the business. So to have to eliminate that kind of gaps in the system on the business, so we want continuity, our business has to run. So there you need the directions and guidance and tools. So these are all comes when some senior members is going to look after your security, how you are going to enforce security in the organization level. So that is where guidance and direction and the tool suggestions, all this comes with the help of governance and compliance. So if you see the governance in the business it is very important, because security is, as I am telling from starting, it is not a simple IT issue. It impacts the entire organization if we don't tackle the properly, right? So that is one of the important things, and it is an integrated approach. So if management has decided some organizational strategy, the security solution must align with that organizational strategy. So it is not something like it is a only security people related role. It is a broader organizational level thought process. So security solutions will align with the management strategies at all levels, from top to bottom, from the board of directors level to the least supporting staff. Everyone has to be properly governed at different levels with respect to their roles and responsibilities. So then only we can have the effective and integrated approach which will end up achieving. And it is a people will try to teach security as a general practice, but you remember, it is a business operation issue. It is not just something like a technical concern. So that's why the security governance is a very important thing. It is not something a technical concern. It is a thing which you need to follow to make your business continuously running, to make it operational. See, if businesses end up losing in terms of, there is a monetary loss. So that's why it is very important. So organizational responsibility, it is each and every organizational responsibility. Security must be managed and governed across the organization, not limited to the IT. So that is one of the broader and important things. Now let's say there exists, if you want to bring any security into the organization, there should be some reference. Let's say these are the some frameworks. Let's say NIST SP 853. So this particular framework will support having the privacy controls for information systems and organization. So if you want to take about the security and privacy controls for information systems and organization, you can directly go to the NIST SP 800-53, because these are the well maintained checklist. I can say that, let's say if you want to do something, if you have a comprehensive framework through which you can see and find out that these are the best practices, these are the best things you need to take care when you are concerned about the security and privacy. So these documents can be referred. And there is also one more document called NIST SP 800 and -100, so which will give the information security handbook. It acts as guide for the manager. So having some blueprint of frameworks before going to the validation, so it indirectly gives a checklist. Against this you can check whether everything is meeting, so that you can identify the gaps. And these are the some frameworks which will help in this security governance. So of course these are mainly designed for the government and military, but of course in any other organization the best out of these documents can be taken and can be implemented even in the private organizations. So organize the security governance efforts. If someone want to bring the security governance into an organizational, referring these documents will make them how to implement the security governance philosophy, how to adhere to the security governance practices. All can be effectively, we can able to understand by following certain frameworks. And also you remember, like if we try to implement something which is broader, which has to be implemented from top to the bottom level of every corner of the organization, you need to have a security governance is very complex. If you does not having a proper guidelines or framework through which you need to enforce, it becomes complex and messy. So that's why it is very important. So you understand the security governance is very important and essential. That's it for today's session. You understand one fundamental requirement in the entire system. To have a business sustainability, security governance is there. Security governance is a broader mechanism where your actions which you take as part of security adherence, someone is going to have a broader view which will bring with a lot of best practices and guidelines and compliances requirement all. And you also remember that to start the security governance you need to visit certain frameworks. Otherwise, without frameworks the implementation will be challenging and messy. Thank you, and the next section we'll see about the third party governance and importance. Thank you.